I have a problem. There's this box that sits in the corner of my office and collects dust. I hate this box. It's at the top of the list of reasons why I don't consider myself an organized person. But I'm determined to change that about myself. The box was a temporary solution to allow for these items to be easily accessible on the off chance that I needed one of them. So the plan is to design a set of pegboards from scratch that allows me to organize this equipment on the wall and finally, just maybe, help me to identify as an organized person. I'm going to need some room to work. Now, the first step in the design process usually starts with a sketchbook. I'm not going for anything fancy here. I'm just trying to quickly get my ideas down on paper as they come to me. Different hole patterns, sizes, and shapes are all being varied until I find something I like. After I have all my ideas down on paper, I can start to filter through the good and the bad. After testing a few layouts for the holes, I think I prefer the offset look that these designs provide. As far as size, I need the designs to be large enough to store several pieces of equipment and maybe some random trinkets. I'm not looking for anything specific for shape. I just know I want this to be a bit of a statement piece in my office. After reviewing my sketches, I think these few designs have the best potential. Now that I have my rough sketches, I like to bring them to life a bit by creating a 3D render of them. Now, normally when I create a 3D render, it's so that I can later use it to create prototypes from. But because the pegboards are going to be so large, it lends itself to another problem that a 3D render can't really fix. You see, the size that this pegboard is eventually going to be is the actual thing that makes it difficult to go through the prototyping phase. This is the phase where I usually take a sketch or an idea and actually bring it to life in the real world as a prototype, and then I can kind of determine what I like and what I dislike about the actual prototype, and then I can go back and make the changes to the sketch and then make another prototype. And then that cycle just continues on multiple times until all of the issues have been resolved. Now, the reason the prototyping phase is so difficult for a project this size is because it requires so much materials just to build a single prototype. For example, the pegs that we'll be designing later on, those are small enough that I can make a bunch of them and it won't really be that much material. But the good news is, I think I've come up with a solution that might help us to get a better understanding of what the final product might look like without iterating through a bunch of prototypes. So I've created this 1/13th scale model of my office, dimensions and all, so that I can use this to get a good idea of what my actual prototypes will look like when they're actually hung and finished. Now, if you recall those designs that I picked out earlier from the sketchbook of the ones that I liked, I've created 3 of the different prototypes in the actual scale of the miniature office so that we can get a good understanding of which one we like, so that we don't have to make all 3 of these prototypes. We can decide which one is our favorite from here, and then we can go and make that prototype. So as far as this one goes, I do like the size of this one. I think I'll be able to hang a reasonable amount of tech on it. The problem that I have with this one is I'm not sure that I love the horizontal look of it. For how much room on the wall it's taking up, I'm just not a huge fan of the amount of space and utilization of the wall that I'll get from this. So this one, not my favorite yet. We'll see how it goes. As far as this one goes, this one, as soon as I made the miniature prototype, I was instantly like not happy with it. It looked better. It looked a lot better on the actual sketchbook. Moving on to the final prototype. This one has been my favorite so far, and everyone's going to have a different taste, but I think this is going to be the one that we move forward with. It takes up the right amount of space, in my opinion, as well as allows me to hang other items Next to it, or even multiple of these pegboards, if I decide to expand in the future, I'm going to take some time and go ahead and make this. And while I'm doing that over the next few days, we can actually get started on the next step now. Let's talk about one of the most important aspects of a pegboard. It's modularity. It hasn't been mentioned up until this point, but the reason I decided to go with a pegboard system rather than a shelf or some other sort of wall organizer is because I want the solution to be modular. Factoring in modularity will allow me to expand and even change the equipment that I store, and the pegboards will still be able to handle it. Now with any pegboard, you need a way that you can hang and place items on it. And this is honestly the part where I think most pegboard products on the market just miss the mark. You'll find pegs that are made of cheap plastic or even sometimes thin metal. So the goal of my pegs will be, of course, to function properly, but also I want to make them look nicer. I'm thinking for this design, I will need two types of pegs. One to, of course, hang items, just like this one, and another that allows me to hang a shelf so that I can place actual items on the shelf that normally wouldn't be able to be hung. So I've been working on some designs for the pegs, and I think this is the first design that we actually should test out. Now, my approach for this peg design was kind of more of a bare bones approach. I was just trying to get an understanding of how exactly this hook was going to hook on to the pegboard and allow it to hold weight on the front without just collapsing. So the problems that I see with this design, while it gets the hook right, there's a few things that just aren't perfect that we're going to have to iterate on. In order for this peg to work, we actually need to have the holes horizontal, and then it will actually slide into place and hold the weight. Honestly though, this peg leaves a bit to be desired. I'm going for more of a stylish look than what already exists. As I mentioned earlier, I'm literally looking to make a better design peg. And honestly, this one isn't really doing it for me. So now with all of that in mind, I just need to continue this process several more times of creating a sketch and then a prototype and then fixing the actual issues with the prototype. Now, as you can tell, there's a few things that have changed since the original prototype. For one, the actual material is made out of oak, and I actually stained it with India ink to get that black color. Now, the other thing you might notice is this topography texture that I've added to the actual prototype. Now, while I think the topography on this looks great, I think it might take away from the actual simplicity that I'm going for with the pegboard design. And if I were to stick with just having this pegboard, I think I might keep it. But for the design ideas that I've gotten from making this one, I don't think we're going to need it for this to look amazing in the end. And now finally, the final problem that I have with this design is the actual size. The problem is, as soon as I hang an item on this pegboard, take headphones for example, if I want them displayed nicely, I won't want to hang something immediately here. I'll want to have some space so that the actual storage of the headphones can look nice. And the problem is, if I can only hang a few items on a pegboard, this probably isn't going to be enough storage. Now, using the things I learned from this prototype, I've actually created another design that's quite a bit different, and I'm actually really excited to share it. So this is the new design, and as I mentioned, it's quite a bit different. So this goes for a triple pegboard rather than just the single. And the point of this was, after hanging this first prototype, I realized that I wasn't going to have enough storage space on just a single one. So I think making this a bit bigger will allow for me to hang a lot more items on it. And then I won't have to worry about my tech box becoming overflowing again. I can just hang it all on here. So I decided to go with the black oak, same as the first prototype, but I wanted to add a little bit of contrast. So I went with a walnut for the center board, and I just think it really rounds out the design of it. So over the next few days, I'm going to actually go ahead and make this new design. But before I do that, I actually want to catch you guys up to speed on where I got with the peg design. So I think I finally landed on a design of the peg that I'm super happy with. But before I get there, I want to show you guys a few of the iterations of the design that didn't quite make the final cut. Here we have the second iteration of the design. Now, the idea behind this one was that it would allow me to hook the bottom side of the hole. And honestly, I'm really not sure what I was thinking about with this one, because as soon as you push down, it like wants to tilt and fall out. So I learned a lot, bad design, had to move on. So then we moved on to this next design, which it did well with the top hook, and it relies on that to support all of its weight. But I added this little tab at the bottom that I thought would add some extra stability, and it really doesn't do anything. I'm not sure what I was thinking with this one either. So that was a dud. However, I did add these holes to the front side, and I think it really makes these look really nice. Next, we moved on to this design, and I really liked this design. It was sleek, it looked really great, and it even worked better. There was one thing that I was really hoping to be able to do with this peg, and it just didn't do it. Which brings me to the final peg that does have the secret feature. As you can tell, I have these holes for testing, and the holes are vertical. And when I place this final hook into here, it works great vertically. But if I ever decide that I want to hang these pegboards horizontally, you can see that the peg actually will work in a horizontal hole configuration as well. And now I have a lot more flexibility with how these will look when I'm finally done with them. Now, this is just a prototype of the final design. So I went ahead and had a company make them custom for me out of steel, so that they're a lot more sturdy. And there's even another cool feature that I'm about to show you. Okay, so the reason I think this peg design works so well is for this added feature that I came up with at the last moment, and I think it works really well. But the beauty of having metal pegs instead of the plastic ones is that I can embed magnets into the actual shelf so that we can have this be more stable. And also it adds this satisfying click, and it's not going anywhere. Like this is stable. It can support a bunch of weight. Let me show you. Now all I have is 10 pounds, but as you can see, these pegs are super sturdy. These pegs are super sturdy. They're not going anywhere. They're definitely not breaking. So I guess all that's left is I got to go finish up these pegboards, get them home, hang them up, and we'll see how they look.
Nothing to hold me back, take my time, just enjoy the ride. I know man, passing by, life is good, best I've ever felt. Get me up, somewhere new, somewhere I can find myself. Oh, I feel so alive. As I reach out to the sky. I found my way. I was in the dark against it all, but made it through the day. 'Cause I found my way. bad times, I know I'll be okay, 'cause I found my way. I found